The FoxAlien CL6560. Damn, this is a big machine. Let's get to unpacking. Hey everyone, and welcome to the latest episode where we are going to be assembling the FoxAlien CL6560. Up front it is feeling like it's going to be an impressive machine, but we shall see in the future review. Now, three things I need to mention before we start assembling. First, blue Loctite. You can apply a couple of drops of this to every bolt just to guarantee that it holds together nice and tight. It's not essential, it is just something to possibly consider. The second thing is the parts list. As you unpack everything, check each item off and make sure you have everything required before you start. And the third thing is check anything that is already pre-assembled. Go around and just check all the various bolts and make sure they are in fact tight. You don't want anything coming loose once you actually got the machine built, because some of those components can then be difficult to access. So with that out of the way, let's turn a pile of parts into this finished machine. So begin by laying the subframe out. The parts with the feet go end to end, with the other pieces sitting in the middle, ultimately bridged by the smallest piece again with the feet. In terms of the holes, bring the pieces into the two inner holes. We're going to join all this up with some M5 30mm bolts, preload these with a spring washer and a flat washer, and then start assembling. Start to get your bolts in, but leave a little bit of play to make assembling the rest of the frame easier. Then once all the bolts are in, go round and tighten everything up. Once all your bolts are in place, just go around and pinch them all up, make sure they are tight. You'll want the subframe in this orientation with the open end sticking out to the left and right. There is no front or back to the frame, it is all the same no matter which way it goes. Now, there are little divots in the end of these rails, and ultimately it allows the y-axis to sit on and go into position. So we'll do the same with this side now. We're going to bring in the y-axis, drop it on top into one of those divots, and make sure it sits in position on both the front and back of that frame before bringing the bolts in to secure this in place. Then, using the M5 20mm flat cap bolts, go ahead and secure each end of the y-axis all the way around. Again, like before, get them in, but don't tighten them fully up until every bolt is in position. So at this point, ignore the fact the machine is fully built. The clip that should have been here didn't record correctly, so I'm having to recreate it. Now at this point, we need to check that the frame is square. The easiest way to do this is to take something like a tape measure and simply go from corner to corner and check that both measurements match. So if we hook it on that corner, measure to here, 1230mm, and if we dip it underneath the spindle and do the same on the opposite corner, 1230, perfect. Both measurements match, meaning that this frame is square. Straight out of the box, so that's pretty good. If anything on your setup isn't quite square, release some of the bolts that are holding each corner and just try and compress the opposite diagonals to get it back into a square shape. And obviously every time you adjust it, just keep remeasuring the diagonals until you get it perfect. Bring in your MDF aluminium bed pieces and start to lay them out on top of the subframe, making sure the holes on either end align with the holes pre-drilled in the frame. Do take note, these pieces are tongue and groove, which means they do slide in together, so you need to get the orientation of them the correct way around. Then bring in the M4 16mm bolts and again drop them in every hole, making sure that they start to thread in to the pre-drilled holes. So with the bed all secured down, the next thing we need to do is make sure both of the carriages are in the same position on the y-axis. The easiest way to do this, take something like a ruler or a stick, place it on the inside against the front bracket, and then use the knob to turn it until the carriage touches the ruler or the stick. There we are. Do the same on the other side. And we now know that both of these are in exactly the same position in relation to the y-axis. So I've placed the x-axis on top of the machine for now, and we're about to drop it onto these two carriages. There is a small limit switch sticking out of the one side. Make sure that's folded in slightly. You don't want to accidentally cut this or damage it. Obviously it will cause issues. Now there are recesses on both sides of the plate for the axis to drop into position, so it should go in fairly easy. So with the x-axis gantry in place, we are going to take the M5 14mm bolts, preload them again with a spring washer and a flat washer. Spring washer goes on first, and then secure the gantry in place, 4 bolts on either end. So next we're going to be mounting the Z assembly to the X-axis gantry. We're going to be doing this using the same M5 14mm bolts, but we do not need any washers this time. Now this does have a little bit of weight in it, so if you are struggling to hold it in position, you can consider propping it up with something like a container, a book, anything that fits underneath. What I'm going to do is take one of the M5 bolts, place it through into the hole at the back, and then hold it in position while I secure that bolt in place. Make sure you get a good couple of turns on it before moving on to the next bolt. It will naturally swing. It should be okay there for a second while you take a second bolt. I'm going to bring that back into place, place the bolt through, and with that second bolt in, it should now hold its own weight while you get the other 2 bolts in position at the bottom. So with the Z assembly in place, we are now going to mount the spindle holder. Now there are 2 that come with this machine, the smaller 52mm one, which will take a laser, as well as the supplied spindle, and then there is the 65mm one, which will take your average trim router such as a Makita, Bauer, Harbor Freight. If you're after one of these routers, I'll put a couple of links in the description area below. For the purpose of today's video, I'm just going to be mounting the smaller 52mm one because I'll be using the original spindle to begin with. To do this, we need the M5 14mm bolts again, preloaded with a spring washer and a flat washer, but do be careful, these are the smaller flat washers that are required in order to mount this onto the machine. Now one thing I will just quickly point out is you'll see a lot of holes on this plate. The 2 inner sets are for the 52mm holder, the smaller one. The outer ones are for the 65mm holder, and ultimately you can have it at different heights should you need to. So we'll just proceed to get this in place. We'll get 1 bolt in, bring another one in, put that into the hole, and again just a few turns to make sure it's held in position before putting the remaining 2 bolts in. So I'm about to drop the spindle in. I'm going to have the terminals facing out towards me. I'm just going to put that in approximately just below halfway. Then we're going to start to tighten the 2 bolts up. Now to begin with, just give each bolt a couple of turns and move on to the next one, and keep alternating back and forth between them until the clamp starts to tighten up. Now do be very careful, you don't want to over tighten these because it can ruin the threads on them. So just a little bit of a turn, quarter a turn at a time, or half an eighth of a turn, and just keep building the pressure up. Once it starts to get to a point where it's nice and tight, that should mean it's secure. Now one thing I always like to do is take something like a pen or a marker and just put a little mark against the spindle itself, making sure that it's left a mark on the outer facing. Now what we can tell from this point, if at any point the spindle moves up or down because it's not quite secure, we'll be able to clearly see it and just tighten those up just a fraction more. Next we've got the drag chain brackets. Now the one that looks completely different, that is definitely for the y-axis. As for the other 2, they do look a little bit similar. The one that is slightly longer is for the x-axis, the one is shorter is for the y-axis. There is a slight difference in the mounting holes for them. Again, the ones that are narrower is for the x, the ones that are wider is for the y. The L-shaped bracket is what goes onto the side plate, and we're going to mount this using the M5 6mm bolt. So we'll just place that through, get it in, give it a couple of turns again, and bring the second one in and put that in place as well. The bracket for the rear is mounted using M4 6mm bolts. So again, bring that in, get 1 bolt in position, and bring the second one in. Next we're going to mount the X-axis drag chain support as well as the drag chain bracket using M5 6mm bolts, and this goes on the rear of the X-axis. Don't forget to stay hydrated whilst working this hard. Cheers. What I've done now is place the drag chain roughly in position on all of the brackets. Just make sure that the holes align, but crucially make sure any connections can meet the point that they need to get to. If for any reason your connections don't quite match up with the connector on the other side, shuffle the drag chain about a bit, or shuffle the wiring about within the drag chain, just to make sure all your connections are close together. And once you're happy with where everything is, use the M4 flat cap 6mm bolts to hold the drag chains in position on each bracket. These are fine threads, so be careful not to cross thread or to over tighten. As long as they are holding the drag chain in position and nice and secure, then that is as tight as they need to be. We can then drop the dust guards in the front and back. These do have a coating on them that you can take off, or you can leave it on to save damaging the acrylic. So we'll just drop that in the front one, do the same on the back, and we can then move on to finishing off the wiring. At this point, you'll want to go around your machine and connect all of the cables up. Each one is colour coordinated as well as being written on the label, and each connection will only go together one way, making it very simple. Make sure all limit switches, stepper motors and the spindle have been connected. Now, just before we connect everything to the back of the control box, flip this over and you will see a switch to go between 110 and 220. Put it on the right side depending on the voltage for your country. I have 220, so it's pushed over to the right hand side. Then we're going to go around and connect all the aviation connectors to the back of the machine, and again everything is labelled up to align with the labels on the back of the machine. So we'll go around and get all this done now. Connect the USB cable, connect the power cord. Make sure the emergency stop is released and in the open position, and if necessary turn the speed up on the spindle dial. So that is the machine built, and for the size of it, well, that was pretty simple. Now, in terms of your next steps, maybe connecting this to the machine, getting a test job done, well, there should be a link up in the corner to a previous video I've done running you through all of those basics, making sure everything's working, how to hold your material down, and ultimately guaranteeing that your first test job is going to be successful. So definitely check it out. It is a very useful video. Now I've got to move on and get this machine reviewed. I am looking forward to it. There's some great features like these large stepper motors, and I'm interested to see how these new rails fare up. So yeah, let's get stuck in. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and make sure you click that subscribe button to get more content. Final thanks goes to my patrons. If you want to get involved for one-to-one help, early access to content and even giveaways, then definitely check out the Patreon links in the description area below. I will see you all on the next episode.